Good evening, Dr. Barnes. Can you hear me? Levi can hear me. Who we got with us here? I'll stop my share. See who we got. Oh, Leslie.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just unmuted everybody. Dr.
Okay.
Barnes, you're still muted for some reason. There you are.
There you go.
I may be in and out. I've got our air conditioner went out last night, and I'm waiting on the guy to show up to fix it. So if I disappear, I'll be listening.
No, that'd be more important than anything that you can hear from me tonight. I can tell you that. I want my air fixed.
It's about 78 degrees in here.
Jeez, it's 78 in here and air conditioner's on. It's about 100 here today at the lake. I left Gardner Webb and came home to Lake Norman, and I should have stayed. Great day.
Yeah. It's usually about 68 degrees in my house.
Right. I've been in my condo all week. I've got it where you can hang meat. I have to close the refrigerator to keep from freezing the stuff in the refrigerator. I keep the air conditioner turned down so low there. My wife comes. It doesn't go well.
When I saw her this morning, I was like, what in the hell?
No. Keep it dark and cold. She's got the temperature at 70 here, and she's got a quilt on. What time is it?
I don't know what she's trying to prove.
Okay, I've got about 6:58? What did I do with my phone? I laid it here somewhere. All right, let's see. Let me go ahead and Sean's here, and Jennifer and Levi and Gary and Beverly. We're doing all right. We got 10 so far. I'm guessing both groups got the message. Let me see.
Nothing I can do it.
Here we go. People are.
Question. What does Ellen do in special ed? I know Barker does AIS, right? Or IB.
All right. All right. I'll make sure we got Beverly. All right. Okay. Yeah, I've got everything loaded. All right. You make sure. Yeah, we're recording. All right. I've got 7 o'clock. Let's get started. Good evening. This is Mels 603. This is the fall session. This is both the 03 and O sections of 603. We'll be meeting on Wednesday nights, as you can see on the screen, at 7 o'clock. I'll have you out in an hour each week. With me tonight is Dr. Lisa Barnes. Dr. Barnes will be your clinical coach this semester. She works with me. We'll be transitioning somewhat this semester from where have you been in the first 2 classes. You've been very successful, and so I'm appreciative of that. This semester we'll be meeting 1 time a week on Wednesdays. You will not have a scheduled coaching session separate from our regular meeting. I will try to cover evidence artifacts during our regular weekly meeting. Dr. Barnes will be available, and she has a clinical shell. You should see it under my courses. It should say clinical internship Barnes. That is the shell that you will use. You will only go to her shell if I recommend you to her shell. You will put your work in to our class shells, and I will give you suggestions for improvement or comments. If that doesn't work, I will send you to her, and she will work exclusively and independently with you to improve your work. But I know I've seen the quality of the work that you folks do. I don't anticipate anybody will have to go to her shell. So specifically, she's going to be here to add her expertise. She is a law and policy person. That's what she does for a living. She is an executive director in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, student discipline and safety, and works exclusively with law and policy, due process, those kinds of things, so she has a lot to offer to our class as we go through. especially when we get to our case studies. She will also work with you on your task stream competency folio. We're going to focus on it this semester as well. You have your DRF portfolio in task stream, and we'll cover that in just a few minutes. And you also have your competency folio for your artifacts. Those are things that are generated from the work that you do as a clinical intern. That competency folio will be uploaded in your DRF portfolio in your last semester and will be graded. But more importantly, you can publish and share that competency folio with prospective employers, and they can see examples of the work, artifacts of the work that you did. As you all know, I'm sure, that principals and assistant principals in North Carolina are graded on the basis of and evaluated on the basis of evidence and artifacts. And evidence is a written narrative, APTEL. We're working on the OMA this semester, but there's also artifacts. And those are things that are produced as a result of the work that you do. Pictures, agendas, minutes, videos, things that you do as an intern, those are artifacts, and that's what goes in your competency folio to show that you're competent in those 21 areas. And we'll cover that again in a few minutes. Again, welcome. On the screen, I have the course overview, and I have the nights that we'll be meeting between now and December the 11th. There is the Zoom link that you will use each week. We got about 16 people with us tonight. That's about half of our folks. As you know, these sessions are optional. I will record them each week. I see the little red dot flashing, and so I will post them no later than 2 hours after our weekly sessions. It takes about an hour for them to process and another 30 minutes or so to get them uploaded into YouTube. And then they will be posted under Zoom session 1, the link, and I will email you the link through quickly, the email system that's hooked to our class. Again, welcome. We're glad to have you. This is a law policy finance course. It's an abrupt departure from the first two courses that you had. The first course, which led to the APSEL, was about forming PLCs and all about improving instruction in your school. Your second class assessment was working on improving the teaching faculty of your schools. It led to a professional growth plan. This semester is about the operations of the school, the management piece. This is about how to build a legal master schedule, a legal duty roster, a legal supervision schedule, develop a legal budget to make sure that you do everything legally in terms of hiring, employee assistance, knowing all the rules, regulations, and laws of the school. We will go through those as we go through. We'll work exclusively in North Carolina General Statute 115C. There's 545 of those statutes. We'll work most specifically with 288, which is duties and responsibilities of the school principal. So we'll work through those as we go this semester. Our case studies, we have 4 of those, and they're all relevant and modern issues that school administrators deal with. Let me go ahead and tell you now, there is a right and wrong answer to all of those 4 case studies. They are not opinion. They're not my opinion. Students make the mistake of thinking, well, Dale's very highly opinionated. Well, yeah, probably, but that's not the issue. The issue is when I tell you this is how it works, this is how it works. This is about not losing your house. Since 1992, I was a principal in 1992. Yes, I'm that old. I was a principal in 1992 when we all had to be trained in tort liability by Richard Swartz, who was still the state's attorney, his firm out of Raleigh, because we lost a case. The state lost a case in Union County, North Carolina. And as a result of that case, it was determined that school administrators could be sued as individuals, that there was, that you could be held responsible if you were negligent or had committed a crime or were negligent in your duties, that not only could the school district be sued, you can be as well. And so what hopefully we teach you this semester is about A, keeping your job, and B, keeping a place to live and not losing your house. That's very important. So we're playing for keeps. We're going to keep it light, and I'll tell bad jokes and awful stories. But in the end, we want you to, you don't have to memorize your book, you know, the Principal's Guide to School Law. But what I hope is when things pop up in your line of work, in your job, when things happen, a little bell will go off. I better go look and see about that. I remember Dale or Dr. Barnes said something about that. I might better go look that up. I don't want to have to explain this in court. So that's the purpose. We'll also talk about finance, which is part of law, because you have money from 4 different revenue sources: federal, state, local, and then school monies. Each of those has law that goes with it in terms of how it can be spent. And if you misspend that money, the next person that replaces you will have to figure out a way to either revert or make that money up. It won't be your problem because you'll be at home if you spend the money. One of my stories that I tell is absolutely a true story. I visit interns every semester just like everybody else. I try to make sure that I do that. And I was visiting out in a very rural area of southeastern North Carolina. I don't know. I got off 40 somewhere about Newton Grove and was heading toward Topsail, going across that part of the state. And if you've ever been through there, there's no road signs. Some of it's dirt roads. My GPS is just a circle spinning with a question mark. It didn't even know where we were. And so that's relevant to the story in that you couldn't drive by this school by accident. You had to basically have a helicopter to find it, get there. And when I got there, I had to wait an hour to see the principal because they were having a Title I audit. The principal had forgotten the 5 rules or the rationale for a school schedule. First is you got to follow federal law, then state law, then local board policy, and then best practices, which is EVOS, and then teacher input. Those are the 5 steps to building the school schedule, master schedule. He had forgotten, and he had reversed the top and bottom one. He'd forgotten that Title I says that you can't use Title I funds except for Title I kids if you're in a Title I program school. He was in a Title I program, not a Title I school. In a Title I school with more than 80% of the kids on free and reduced lunch, everybody can share in the federal money that comes. If you're in a Title I program, 50% or more, only the Title I kids can share in the money. So he had 3 teachers in the 3rd grade. 2 of them had 30 in their room and 1 had 15. Well, the 2 that had 30 complained and whined and fixed the fit. And so he moved 15 kids in or 10 kids into the Title I teacher's room that were not Title I kids to balance out the loads. And of course, the Title I teacher immediately picked up the phone and called DPI, and the auditor was there the next day. So the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, is I had to go back 2 weeks later to meet the new principal. You do not intentionally misspend federal money without there being consequences for your behavior. He simply, I'm sure went through the 5 steps of scheduling a school. He just got the top and bottom one reversed, and he put teacher input over federal law. You don't make that mistake but once. There is no recourse if you do that. You get fired. Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. Many of you know some of these things. Hopefully, if you don't, you'll learn as we go this semester. Your textbooks, the Principal's Guide to School Law, that'll be a lifer if you're in the business. You'll keep that one forever. And then resource management, you'll keep that one as well. These are the only 2 books that we have. Both of these will be valuable resources that you will use on a regular basis when you are in the principalship. So that's it. Our grading system, the total points available, all assignments are worth 100 points. There's 38 of them. So to make an A is 34, and you know how to go to My Grades and Blackboard and check on your points. There shouldn't be any issue with your grade. You'll know where you are at all times. So that is our course overview. I'll pause and catch my breath and see if anybody has any questions on the overview before I go through the rest of the menu tonight. All right. The syllabus, all the important things are on the course overview. So your handbooks and folio resources, You have your clinical handbook, your scale handbook, your site mentor handbook. The two things that I want you to see mostly are these two: open-ended competency artifact proofs for the competency folio and the competency folio evidence proof. This tells you where you can find artifacts to put in your competency folio this semester. I know these have been shared with you before, but let me review them for you quickly again. So as you go through your activities for your 80 hours of clinical internship every semester, I have keyed them in terms of where they fit into the 21 competencies. So if you address a small or large group of adults, that would be dialogue or inquiry. It would satisfy that competency, or a communication competency. And when you go to your log, I have put on your log a place where you can say, all right, I did this, large or small groups. These two columns are for you. All I have to have is the date, the activity, and the hours. These two columns I built in for you so that you can say, all right, that should satisfy this competency. And the proof column is, all right, what artifact do I have that shows that I did that? You won't have one of these for everything that you do, but if you've got some good artifacts that show a competency, just remind yourself where they are. Oh, I've got an agenda from that meeting. I can take a picture of it with my phone and upload that PNG, that JPEG. I can upload that JPEG, or I can screenshot it, a PNG. I can do something like that. There's a way I can upload that into my competency folio where people can see the work that I have done. So again, the competency and the proof columns are for you. They're not for me. They remind you, oh, I've got some artifacts that I've generated this semester that can go in my competency folio. So that's from your open-ended. From your evidence artifact work, I've got them keyed as well for you. So when you send an email and get permission from your principal to set up your PLC, when you did that for your app cell, that represented competencies 1, 3, 6, 12, and 20. And if we look at the key here, that was communication, conflict management. 12 would be organizational ability, and 20 is time management. It would satisfy any of those. So if you've got something from that PLC meeting, like a video, that'd be perfect to upload that, or a picture, or minutes, or an agenda, or your norms and values. So go back through this list and before it gets too far into the program, because you're not as old as me, but the more you sleep, the more you forget. Where are these artifacts that I have that I can put in my competency folio that's not only going to satisfy that part of my task stream DRF portfolio for my state license, but also it's going to be a neat thing to show a prospective employer. Because we'll look at that in a minute, and I'll show you can actually share that with prospective employers. All right. So that's what's important in that one. The weekly schedule, we'll start out with it every week. We'll start with our weekly schedule that tells us where we are. So this week, introduction to course and instructor, clinical coach. We'll cover task stream, Blackboard, and evidence artifacts tonight. We'll talk about master scheduling, supervision scheduling, duty roster. I've already introduced those. We'll look at the OMA task and rubric. Your discussion board is discussion board 1. Locate copies of the emergency plan. Read school law, pages 14 to 17, and assess your school emergency plan. And start your OMA evidence work is to start a draft of OMA task 1. And so as you can see, hopefully we'll be through with the OMA by Thanksgiving. That's our plan. That's how I've got you paced to be able to do that. And so everything that you need to do every week is on this weekly schedule. If I were you, I'd probably print this out and put it at my workspace, because it's got everything I've got to do every week, and it also has the Zoom link. So if I forget it, it's right there on it as well. So everything you need to do is right here. Now, to that end, when we look at our discussion board, it's not really discussions, it's activities. This is a going and doing course. So locate copies of emergency school plan, examine a school district field trip policy. Assuming that you're the supervisor, what action would you take if a car rear ends the bus? Or the bus rear ends the car, resulting in minor injuries to several students? Reflect on the fact that the educators have been found financially responsible. That's what I was talking about. That's been since '92. Observe due process in the school and report what surprised you most about student due process, a disciplinary incident. Interview an AP. Examine a district policy on cyberbullying. Attend an IEP meeting. Interview the chair of your school intervention team with all the changes that's been made to MTSS and RTI. Interview administrator concerning HR hiring practices. How do you hire do you have an analyst that refers applicants to you? Do you have to find your own? Do you have to do interviews, or they just refer candidates to you? Do you have to call references, or is that done from somebody in HR? Those kinds of things. I worked out in a couple of rural districts before I went to Charlotte. We had to do everything. Back then, when I had hair, I had to wear a hairnet and serve lunch in the cafeteria if the cafeteria lady was out. But when I hired people, I had to do everything. I had to find them. I had to advertise, put it in the paper. I had to vet them. I had to check their references, get a background. I had to do everything. When I was in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, I just had to show up sober and clean clothes. It was all done for me. They just they just sent me the candidates, and everything was done. And I just picked between the three that they sent me. That's all I had to do. And somewhere between there is where your district will be. You may be in one of those where you got to do everything. You may be in Charlotte where you don't have to do anything. But more than likely, you're going to be somewhere in between. You need to know what that is. You need to know what that protocol is for hiring people. Benefits. This is a biggie. You need to know who to call and what your district offers. Because that's going to play a major part in how you deal with your faculty. With individual personnel issues is what is available to them in terms of employee assistance. Do a facilities walkthrough using an assessment inventory. That's in your shell. It's in that weekly. It's in our materials folder for that week. So you'll get your assessment inventory. Interview an administrator concerning school fundraising. The big issue with school fundraising is people think, well, I'll just delegate that over to the school PTA and I won't have to worry with that. No, that's wrong. People who think that are generally in the unemployment line pretty quickly. You can delegate the activity, but not the responsibility. You let the money get gone from the PTA or something bad happen with it, you'll find yourself either fired or demoted for failure to maintain fiscal control. That's your responsibility, whether you want it to be or not. It's fundraising. You better find out how it works in your district. All fundraising has to be pre-approved before you do it as well. So you need to find out about fundraising in your district. That's a biggie. Interview an administrator about the 5 most important steps in school-based budgeting process, how they come up with their local school budget. Locate a copy of that budget. Does it contain federal, state, local, and school funds? Is anything missing? There's a case study to look at. You respond to. Examine your school's district policy on harassment. How you would deal with a complaint from a 10th grade female student claiming sexual harassment by her male softball coach. And those will be your activities that you'll need to do this semester. There is no forced response. You just post your response. I read it. You can read everybody else's, but there's no, you must post one and respond to 2 more. No. Just put yours in. I'm not interested that you respond to somebody else's. I'd like for you to read them, but I'm not doing forced response. So that's your weekly activities. Those are all laid out for you on your weekly schedule. All right, peer reviewing. And hold your applause down. You only have to do 1 review of tasks 1, 2, and 3 of the OMA. You only have to do one written review. You don't have to do any video peer reviews. You're going to spend your time on video doing case studies this semester. Again, a shift. We're moving from, you've learned how to use Zoom and you have your Zoom teams. You've learned how to do peer review using Zoom. Rather than doing peer review on Zoom now, we're going to step up our game a little bit. We're going to do case studies. And you'll meet the week before, and you're going to come up with a 2 or 3 or 4 page PowerPoint where you address the questions for each of the case studies. And so your Zooms, your peer Zooms this semester are to do the 4 case studies. They are not to do peer reviews. You'll simply do a written peer review, one of a task 1 of one of your team members, task 2, and task 3. And all that is laid out right here. And of course, here's the template to do your peer review. So when Leslie puts hers in, Sean can go to discussion board, pull it down, review it, put the review back up, drop the review in the Dropbox. You know the system. So over here on the side, the assignment Dropbox. So here's task for peer instructor review. This is where you upload your drafts and you download somebody else's to peer review it and upload the peer review back on that same thread for them. And then you take that peer review and you put it over here in your assignment Dropbox to get your grade on that peer review. This is also, once your work's been peer reviewed and it's done, and I tell you, fine, move on to the next task, this is where you put your work for the grade on your task as well. Pretty simple process. The discussion board is where you upload work and download work for review. This is where you put it in for the grade. Very simple. 2 boxes. You got an OMA turn it in check, but right before we go to task stream, when we have all 4 tasks done of the OMA, and I'll tell you it's ready to go, we'll put it in the OMA turn it in check to make sure all your references are good before we go to task stream. And I'll tell you, I'll grade it immediately and tell you it's ready for task stream, and you'll upload it to task stream. And that's the only evidence that you have to do this semester is the OMA. We should be through with it right about Thanksgiving, the way I've got you paced. All right, so that's how all of that will work. Each session, I have the materials that I'm going to be covering during that section. As you can see, I'm reviewing all Blackboard functions. That's where I am now. Now I'm ready to start on our task stream functions. Does anybody have any questions? I will talk more next week about case studies. I will introduce them quickly. Here's your first case study. Will cheating strike Bobby out? If we look at our weekly schedule, we're going to cover that in week 3. So sometime next week, y'all should get together and start putting your presentation together as your Zoom teams. You'll keep the same teams that you've had the first 2 semesters. If there's an issue with that, email me and let me know that you have a problem with your teams. But your team will get together sometime next week, and then you should be ready to present. At least one of your people needs to show up on Wednesday, September the 11th, to present your case study for your group. If all of you come, you can share in that. But if not, make sure that at least one of your people comes and shares your case study with us. We'll be glad to have that case study. If we don't have anybody, make sure that you upload it, but we would love to have some student presentations that night. If you don't have it, put it in and I will go over your presentation. So, a couple of things on this case. So here are the things you have to do. Make sure you've read Chapter 6 in school law before you start. What should the principal's course of action be? Be sure to address the issues of due process, substantive and procedural, standards of arbitrary and capricious, and that includes zero tolerance, and then address the 4 ethical paradigms and how they relate. So we're looking at the law and ethics, and so if we look under, let's see. Section 2. Section 3. All right. No problem. The 4 ethical paradigms, I will have them in there later tonight. I see that document is not there. It should have been right here. The 4 ethical paradigms, care, justice, critique, and profession. I will have that document there. It's probably in one of the other places, but I'll have it. So that's what you'll do when you do these. You'll have a little PowerPoint presentation. Now, I'm going to be kinder than I usually am. I'm going to give you a couple of clues on this one. Don't get bogged down in the details in terms of who Bobby's related to, this, that, or the other. All that's just thrown in to throw you off. Look at the law. Look at the principle. Look at 115C 288, the duties and responsibilities. Who actually assigns grades? That would be the principal. Look at the content of the case. Understand what zero tolerance expulsion is. Zero tolerance means is if you do this, we give you that. We don't care. We don't do due process. We don't care about extenuating circumstances or any of this. If you do this, we give you that. That is, of course, illegal. Zero tolerance policies are illegal. You need to look at this case in the lens of zero tolerance, not zero tolerance to cheating, zero tolerance expulsions. So when you look through this case, Bobby turns in a regular class assignment. He turns in a paper that his brother did a couple years before. The teacher's response is to fail him for the year, which is a year-long expulsion from school. Is that legal? Can you support that? Is it appropriate? Is it arbitrary or is it capricious? Capricious means is there too much punishment for the crime? That's what we're looking at. Don't get caught up in the bells and whistles of the case that students get distracted by. You know, that Bobby is a bad actor or that he's, devil's the teacher all the time is immaterial. We look at case studies from law, policy, ethics. Again, I'll have the 4 ethics, the four ethical concerns. I'll have those in there later tonight. So that's how you do case studies. These are not my opinion type stuff. There is law behind all these. So that concludes all of the things that you'll be responsible for this semester in Blackboard. Let's move quickly to task stream. So this is your view of task stream. This is what it looks like. So this semester, as you can see, you will owe me the OMA. You'll also have to do your School of Ed dispositions. You can do those at any time. You can go in tonight if you want to and do your School of Ed disposition. That's your self-assessment of how you're progressing with your dispositional behaviors through this course. So that's the only other thing in your DRF portfolio due this semester is that and your OMA. Now, because you don't have to do competency analysis or any of that this semester, now would be an excellent time for us to work on our competency folio. So you will go to your folio and web pages. You will pull up your competency folio. Here's mine. And you know that you are, and it tells you, if you look at the screen, it tells you what, there's three different artifacts due. One from that you generated from the app cell, one that you generated when you do the SOP later on, and one open-ended from your clinical hours. And it tells you one of them has to satisfy a digital learning competency. Like if you send an email, that's digital, it'll satisfy that competence. And so here are your 21. Please remember, you don't have to put anything under digital learning competency. I have embedded them in the first 21. Now, there won't be one in every one of them. 4 of these won't have a digital because there's only 17. There we go. So delegation doesn't have one, which makes sense. So, but make sure you read each of these. So after Mels 601 and 2, you should have one full round of these already completed. By the end of this semester, you should have another half round or 12 more of them done. So if you don't have your first round done, it's the perfect time to catch up and make sure that you've got one for each of these and then one for half of them again by the end of this semester. If I were you, I'd be industrious and I would try to knock out a whole round this semester, and then that leaves you the spring where you could knock out a whole round maybe in the spring and be done, because you folks are going to finish in the summer. That's not going to go well. I'm going to tell you right now. This, remember that back in August when it was hot, Dale told you that you're only going to have 5 weeks to have everything done when it comes to the summer session. That's going to be a push to get your SIOP done and your CAP done in 5 weeks. You don't need the added pressure of having to try to do your competency folio. So if you could have it already completed by the time we get to summer, the 3rd week in May, that would be very helpful to you. Now, the SIOP, I do have a template for it. You won't have a template for the skip, nor will you have one for the CAP. And you have a bare bones one and some notes for the OMA that I'm getting ready to cover in just a minute. But again, intentional abandonment, we gave you templates for the AppSell and the AppTell. The OMA, we're going to give you a bare bones template and some notes. When we get to the skip next semester, no template, CAP, no template. When you get to the SIOP, I will give you an outline that says, go here to get this stuff. But again, so the SIOP doesn't take that much time, but you got to do the CAP and the SIOP in 5 weeks. You've got to be pretty much done by the 2nd week in July, so that you can graduate on time. So we're done by the end of the last week in July, and you graduate the first Saturday in August. So thinking ahead, this semester would be the perfect time to work on this competency folio and get those competencies in there. Now, if I can pull it up, I'm going to show you an example of the perfect portfolio. And I had her email it to me so that I could do this and show you. So just like so this is Anera's, and I had her do an email. And so all I have to see, you can email the link and see to a prospective employer. And this is what hers looks like. Doesn't that look nice? When you click on communication, she did a little narrative and she actually highlighted which ones were digital learning competencies. You don't have to do much narrative. And then here are her attached artifacts. She's got a Zoom meeting video. She's got a document, got a couple of documents and things to see. But as you work through hers, she's got it outlined, and here are the actual artifacts that go along with these things. Look what a great job she did. If I got this, I'd hire an Nara just because her competency folio is just good. She's organized. She knows what she's doing. If you look at her artifacts, they're all great. They show her being a leader in her school. This will do you more good than anything else when it comes time to applying for a job. So put some time in this competency folio. This semester is a perfect time to do that. So we go back to task string. All right. So you'll be working on that this semester. So again, your DRF portfolio, your SOE dispositions and OMA, but work specifically on your competency folio with this semester. Dr. Barnes will, when you request comments over here, it will go to me and her, and we'll look at them. We'll be glad to do that and tell you, yeah, that looks good, or no, that doesn't make sense to me. But I'm not so much interested in your narrative as I am, give me the visual representation, a document that shows me what you did. Your internship logs, as you know, at the end of each semester, you upload them here. Do not upload your internship log in your DRF portfolio. That's for when you have all 5 done at the end and you get a final evaluation. Upload them here for comments at the end of the semester when you get your 80 hours. So that's your task stream requirement for this semester is SOE dispositions, OMA, that's in your DRF portfolio. Your competency folio is to make sure your first round is complete and get at least halfway through the second round, all the way through if you can. That's what to do in task stream this semester. I'll pause again. Let me move this out of the way. If you have any questions, use the chat function or you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions about Blackboard or task stream before I move into the OMA. I'm about a minute ahead. All right, I've got 20 minutes then. That's a perfect amount of time. Hopefully I can do it faster, but I want to make sure that we do this. Check my emails. We're good. All right, so organizational management analysis. The OMA, that's what's due this semester. I tell people all the time, they say, oh, that's about master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. Nope, it's about a legal master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. When I say legal, you got to hit all the parts. You got to have, the class sizes, highly qualified teachers, certified in the right areas, the right amount of planning time, the right amount of duty-free time. You got to have all those things built into your master schedule. You start with your federal programs. You make sure you schedule them first. That's Title I, EC, limited English proficiency, gifted. Those what we call special populations. You got to make sure you get those scheduled and have them in there the right way first. And then you go to your state law, which is about planning and instructional time. And so if you'll look under week 1, I have a document. And I have summarized legal requirements for planning and instructional time. This is a North Carolina document. It's the same thing for South Carolina, basically, though. And it tells you what you have to have in terms of all the state laws that guide building a master schedule. I have them in one document for you. And I have the references where you can go and look yourself. This is kind of a shortcut. So the first thing when building a master schedule, you look at federal law, all your special POPs program, then your state laws on class size limits, how much planning time teachers have to have, how much duty for all that. And then your third is your local board policy. And usually they have non-negotiables. They have things like, got to have X number of minutes of reading, X number of minutes of math, those kinds of things. If you're in elementary, we're going to do a 4x4 block in high school, or we're going to do an AB day. Those are the kinds of things that your local board policy sets. And then your fourth thing is you'll look at EVOS, what teachers do best with which groups of kids, value added, and then 5, teacher input, and it always goes that way. So that's, in the end, we want to be able to build, we start with the end in mind. We want to build a master schedule. That's the heart of the OMA. We also want to build a supervision schedule, which means that that's the after school activities, that we have enough people there to supervise and be safe. We want to build a legal duty roster. We don't just put a sign up sheet in the mail room. That duty roster is covering hallways at class change. That's during the regular school day. How many people you've got in the cafeteria during lunch? Large group areas, it's 1 to 45 is the accepted practice. So if you have a fight in the cafeteria, there's 300 kids in there, and you've got 3 adults. It doesn't matter that you couldn't stop the fight anyway. When you go to court, you're going to lose a negligence suit because you didn't have 1 to 45. You had 1 to 100. And so if you had 8 teachers in there and you had a fight, it's still the same thing would happen, except you won't lose your house. I'm not telling you won't get sued. My job is to keep you from losing your house when you do get sued. So 1 to 45, that's the number when you build a supervision or a duty roster. Duty roster, look at your data. Where's your hot spots? Do you have people out there between buildings at class change? Do you have teachers keeping kids from going to parking lot? Those kinds of things. That's the end goal of the OMA is the organizational piece of school. How do you organize and plan your attack every day? And so we have some documents that will help you with that. And so one of those documents to help you with the OMA is Dr. Mark Robertson, my old running mate from Charlotte. He did you an outline. And if this outline will help you in planning out your OMA. So under OMA task and prompts, there's the template, which is just a bare bones template this time. It just has the task and prompt. Doesn't have any notes or examples. Dr. Robertson has made you some notes here. It's called the OMA Guide to help you with that. He's better to you than I am. And then we have an example of one for you. So you should be able, so we're pulling back a little bit, and then next semester you won't have any of it. But we're pulling back this semester where we, instead of just giving you a template that all is plug and play, you've got to do a little more this semester. So we do have notes for the template, but they're not on the template, so you can build. So we're pulling back a little bit so that you can step forward and emerge as leaders. So that's the process. But back to the actual OMA. Let me walk through it quickly. Knowledge of legal requirements for planning and instruction time. Knowledge of best scheduling practices. Again, that's federal, state, local, EVOS, best practices, and then teacher input. Knowledge of best practices in mentoring, coaching teachers. That's going to be your task 2. Knowledge of North Carolina teacher evaluation system. Knowledge of the value of teacher leadership. How to recruit potential teacher leaders. Functions of a school improvement team, knowledge of communication media formats, knowledge of sources of federal, state, and district policies intended for school improvement goals, accountability, exceptional learners, task and program development. So in the end, what we're trying to get you to do is understand the triangle, if you can see that triangle. At the top of the triangle is the school improvement plan for continuous improvement. In order for it to work, the 2 other legs of the triangle, you must have your budget and your master schedule must support your school improvement plan. That is the only way that you can show improvement or get improvement or continuously improve your school, is that the initiatives, the priorities that you've identified through the school improvement planning process have to be supported by your master schedule and your budget. For example, if you want to focus on reading this year, you have to make sure that you have made that a priority in your master schedule, that you're teaching reading before lunch and you've added a few minutes to your reading schedule each day. And that you're spending your money on maybe some reading materials, some manipulatives or something. The biggest problem that we have in schools is we develop a school improvement plan that goes and sits on a shelf, and we spend our money on other things, and we do our schedule for teacher convenience, and we wonder why our school never improves. So hopefully by working you through the OMA this semester, you'll see there's a systematic process of how you improve the school. So you're going to look in task 1, you're going to examine school in its context, internally and externally. You're going to look at organizational structures, management routines, and operations. Again, that's duty roster, supervision, schedule, and master schedule. When it says organizational structure, management routines, and operations, that's the 3 things it's talking about. Now, task 2, again, keep your applause down. I'm going to tell you the secret here. Task 2 is simply tasks 1 through 3 of the APTEL. Task 1, 2, and 3. Simply take the labels, the APTEL labels off of tasks 1, 2, and 3, put them together, label them like they're supposed to be in task 2 of the OMA, and you're done. Because we did not let you do discipline or something like that. When you did your APTEL last semester, you had to do a professional growth plan for instruction. That's what you're asked to do here. And so if you did one that for improvement of instruction, so each candidate in cooperation with her principal will assume responsibility for developing a program for instructional capacity building. That's that professional growth plan that you put together last semester. Improve student achievement. Now, if you did something on discipline or parent involvement, you're going to have to start from the beginning. So hopefully you followed the directions last semester, and your APTEL was about a professional growth plan for improving instruction. If you did that, all you have to do is take the task and prompt labels off of task 1, 2, and 3, use the template that I've got for you, cut and paste it in there, and you're good to go. That's task 2. Task 3, you've got to build you a new schedule. You've got to assess your current schedule and build you a new one based on the recommendations that you make. And then, of course, you will write your competencies. And so you've got to submit a minimum of 12 in your competency folio, but you've got to write at least 12 for your task 4 this semester. So let's look specifically, and of course, there are the 21 right there. Let's look specifically at task 1. There's your student learning outcomes. All right. So your first prompt. Candidate will research and develop analysis of school context. And so again, if you don't understand what that terminology is, it means duty roster, supervision schedule, and master schedule. That's those 3 things that we're looking for. All right, and then you do an analysis of your district, state, and federal policy, law, and district mandates, rules, students, and staff. You look at current structures and procedures in terms of equitability and transparency. A lot of this stuff's in your school's handbook. You do a quick audit of all your exceptional programs and special POPs. That's not just CC, that's all your federal programs. Title I, AIG, 504, limited English proficiency. All of those are your special population. And then you look at your budget and how it's developed and how much input does your school improvement team have in the budget. That's that first link in that triangle. The school improvement team, their job is to develop the school improvement plan. How much input do they have in the school's budget? If they don't have any, there's a good chance that none of the initiatives from the school improvement plan are going to be funded in the budget. So that's the thing that you look at to round out prompt 1. Task 2, for each of these, you simply copy and paste, take all the APTEL labels, prompts, and tasks, designations off tasks 1, 2, and 3 of the APTEL and fit them into these headings here, and you're through with task 2. Task 3, building the schedule. First thing you'll do, you'll assess the current school scheduling procedures, strengths and areas for improvement. That's strengths and weakness. Not of the schedule itself, but of the procedure that develops the schedule. The worst mistake that a school administrator could ever make is when they develop a bad master schedule is start trying to monkey with it and make it better. The other half that was happy will now be mad, so now everybody will be mad. If you come up with a bad master schedule, it's because you had a bad process. The product is just, that's what it is. The master schedule is a product of the process that put it together. Now, whether principals are admitted or not, somewhere in the office complex at your school, there's a big white board that's gridded off, and they put little yellow stickies on it. Who's going to teach what, where, and when? They claim they don't do that, but they do. The question is whose name goes on the stickies and where does it go when you're building a master schedule? There's got to be a reason or rhyme, a eeny, meeny, miny, mo to that. What comes first? Well, it's federal law, then state law, then local board policy, then EVOS, what your EVOS data tells you in terms of who your most effective teachers are and what subjects and what kids, and then teacher input. That's how you, so if your process does, you need to look at your process. If it doesn't start with your federal programs first, you're going to have problems later on. Or if it starts with what teachers think first. Now, I know some of you are still teachers, and that's a good thing. I was one, and I've been married to one for 35 years. That's a good thing. But teachers look after teachers. You've got to change your lens. Where's Dr. Stedman when I need him? He wears a hat and he changes hats. You got to change your hat from a teacher hat to the administrator hat. And so you've got to start with the protocol of federal, then state, then local, best practices, EVOS, then teacher input. So you've got to look and see, is that how we build our schedule? If not, we could improve upon that. What's the strengths? The strengths we start with those federal programs. Alignment with any of the school improvement team findings. Does our schedule support? Our schedule says we need to focus on math this year. Have we aligned our schedule, our master schedule, to support trying to improve in math this year? Did we follow the legal requirements, the state requirements for planning for teachers? Did they get 60 minutes a day or whatever, 45 minutes a day that the state requires? Do they get that? Are we meeting the needs of our special populations? Have we scheduled our schools so that our kids get what they're supposed to get in the inclusion model? Did we give our faculty input? And then what is your rationale for revising the current schedule? And then you develop a new schedule or a draft that you propose would better suit your school and meet the needs of your kids and address the continuous improvement goal of your school improvement plan. So those are the three, and then of course you write your competencies, at least 12 of them, and you get to pick the 12 that you want to write for task 4, and that will be the end of that. And also we need for you, again, to be redundant, I need for you to put at least 12 artifacts in your competency folio and task stream. They don't have to be the same 12 that you write about here, but that's usually fairly, that they need to be close to those. So there are the 4 tasks of the OMA. Really, you've already done task 2 because you did a professional growth plan for your faculty aimed at improving instruction last semester. Remember, take those labels, task and prompts, anything that refers to the APTEL, and just fit it into task 2 of the OMA. It's simply a copy and paste. All right, so that's our evidence for this semester that we'll be working on. I've covered all of our weekly activities. You have your 4 case studies, your competency folio, and that's it. That's what you'll be doing this semester. You have a good opportunity, because this is our longest semester, and we only have 1 evidence, and it really only had, and the second task in it is simply a copy and paste, and then of course the 4th one is simply writing your competencies. And so you have you have an opportunity this semester to really work on your competency folio artifacts, because you're not going to be overloaded with your evidence this semester. It's fairly short because there's only 4 tasks to begin with, and one of them you've already done. So there's really only 3 tasks, and one of them is just writing your competencies, which does not take that long, as you know. So focus on your competency folio. Get it caught up this semester. All right. Let me double check. I think we'll talk more about the case study next week. Let me go back to Zoom session 1. I've covered everything that's on this list. Next week, as a look ahead, we'll start with North Carolina general statutes next week. I'll highlight a few of those. I will not try to cover all 545. It's helpful to memorize all 545 if you don't have anything else to do. But more than likely, you're just going to use that as it comes hard copy. It's also PDF. It's on the web. We'll cover it next week. We'll be looking most specifically at 288, duties and responsibilities of the school principal. I'll introduce the assessment inventory so that you can get started on that. I have a top 10 in terms of problem areas, legal problem areas for schools. And then we'll be looking at the relevant court cases in education going back to Brown and 54. We'll be looking at those to round out next week's materials. I see that it's 7:58. I started a minute early, and so I'm done with a minute or so here to go. Each week I will start promptly at 7 and I will end promptly at 8. If you have questions, let me stop my share and we'll go back and look to see who everybody's here. If you have questions, you can always unmute yourself. Dr. Sumner is here. She's clinical coach for the 03 section, I believe, and Dr. Barnes is here, who's the coach. Again, your clinical coaches, you will only go to their shell with your evidences. If you need extra help, you'll put it in my shell to begin with, and I'll work with you until what little I know, I'll try to do the best I can. And if I have to, then we'll go to their shell. But they're here, again, they're here to help you. We want to focus on that competency folio this semester. I've looked at those, and we're a little behind on those, and we're not where we need to be. And so we're going to focus on those this semester, and I want our coaches specifically to help us with that. All right. I'm going to unmute Dr. Sumner and Dr. Barnes. If they have any closing comments, I'll let them do the benediction tonight.
Well, for me, I'm just excited about watching the work and seeing the work that's produced in the class. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Right.
Yeah, and same. As Dr. Lamb mentioned at the beginning of this session, these are the things that can make or break you in terms of getting fired very quickly. So not to say one class is any more important than any other, but this is the one you really want to pay attention to and keep those textbooks.
Don't sleep through this one.
Yeah, this is a big one. So we look forward to working with you.
We're excited about working with you this semester. You've got quality people here. Both of your coaches are, Dr. Sumner is the Chief Academic Officer at NCAT at Cullowhee. Dr. Barnes is Executive Director in Law Policy, Discipline, and CMS. I mean, these people, this is what they do. I used to do that, but I'm old and I'm run down. So these people practice this every day, and they have a wonderful perspective, and that's why I pulled them in to work with us this semester. And so you'll get a lot from them. If I had any area of expertise, it would be law policy. I've been teaching this now for a number of years, and I worked in it long before that. So this is my passion, as you can probably already figure out. I wish I was smart enough to do instruction, but I'm not. So I'm a law policy person, and so we are geekish or nerdish about this. This is fun for us. And so you never, and I say that to say this to end the session tonight. There's never going to be a problem with you asking questions or emailing me or questions at your school or I love this stuff, the debate and getting down into the weeds. And so there won't be any problem with you asking questions. And it won't be like, well, he does, will he get mad if we ask? No, I won't get mad at all. And if you say, well, can you cite me a reference on that or a court case? Absolutely. That shows me that you're into it as well. So I appreciate you all being with us tonight. As I said, this session is recorded. It'll be posted under week 1. I will send an email out to both groups in just a few minutes. I will forward those to you, Dr. Barnes and Dr. Sumner, for your edification as well. If you have anything that you need to get in touch with me about this week, don't hesitate to call. My cell phone works. Call me, email me. Not, I'll see you all next Tuesday. Everybody have a good week. Good night.